My name is Cassidy Rowen. I'm a 32-year-old combat medic in the U.S. Army, just back from my third deployment. And I didn't tell a soul I was coming home. Not my mother, not my younger brother, not my stepfather. I wanted to surprise the one person who never forgot me when I was deployed, who mailed me handwritten letters, even when he couldn't hold a pen, steady my grandfather James Rowen. But when I stepped out of the cab and walked up the cracked path to the front door, there was no porch light on, no sound inside, just a stiff wind scraping the empty swing chain against the railing. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Nothing. The door was locked. It wasn't until Mrs. Delgado, the neighbor across the street, waved me down from her porch that I learned the truth. They went to Cancun. Whole family, left 2 weeks ago, she said. Then her face shifted. Honey, no one told you your granddad, he's been in the ICU. Heart failure. County medical. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My heart was already sprinting ahead of me. He was fighting for his life, and they were drinking cocktails under palm trees. That was the moment I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was abandonment, deliberate, and they had no idea I was about to walk back into their lives. Not as a daughter, but as the one holding the receipts. I didn't wait for another word from Mrs. Delgado. Just gave her a quick nod, turned back to the cab, and slid into the back seat like someone slipping into a memory they didn't want. County medical, I said, my voice low and tight. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I could see the question forming behind his eyes. Why was a woman in combat boots with a duffel bag and tired eyes heading to the hospital at midnight? But he said nothing. Just nodded and pulled away from the curb. The drive was a blur. I kept staring out at the empty neighborhoods, houses glowing soft gold with living room lamps and flat-screen TVs. Families asleep or arguing or brushing their teeth, doing all the things families do when they aren't collapsing. I thought about the last FaceTime call I had with Grandpa from overseas. He'd looked smaller, somehow thinner, but his voice was still sharp. He told me not to worry. Told me everything was fine. That was always his line. Everything's fine, Cass. You just keep doing your job. He never liked being a burden. And now he was in ICU alone, while the people he raised were drinking frozen margaritas in Mexico. My hands clenched tight on my duffel as the cab sped past strip malls and gas stations. I'd seen worse in war zones, but this was personal. When we pulled up to County Medical, I tossed a few bills onto the passenger seat before the driver could quote a price. Inside, the air smelled like old bleach and metal, the kind of sterile exhaustion you can't clean off. The woman at the reception desk barely looked up until I dropped my military ID on the counter. I'm here for James Rowen, I said. Admitted 2 weeks ago. She typed something. Her eyes narrowed at the screen. ICU room 606. You family, I'm his granddaughter. There was a pause. A soft one. Then she handed me a visitor badge and said almost apologetically, You're the first one who's come. My stomach didn't drop. It locked. No one had visited. For 2 weeks. No flowers, no calls, no bedside prayers. Just machines and silence. I didn't say anything. Just nodded, took the badge, and headed for the elevators. As the doors closed behind me, I stared at my reflection in the brushed metal walls, tight jaw, sunken eyes, a woman who had aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. Maybe this was what betrayal looked like. Not loud, not messy, just absence, cold and complete. And somewhere on the 6th floor, behind a curtain and a heartbeat monitor, was the man who never missed my birthday, even from a hospital bed. They'd left him, but I hadn't, and I wouldn't. The 6th floor was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind, this was the kind of silence that made fluorescent lights buzz louder, made the squeak of rubber soles down the hall sound like thunder. I walked past room after room, each filled with tired machines and tired people. Some clung to life. Some looked like they'd already let go, but no one had told the machines yet. Room 606 was at the end of the hall. The door was cracked open just enough to let the cold blue light spill into the corridor like a warning. I pushed it open. There he was. James Rowen, My grandfather. The man who taught me to change a tire before I was tall enough to see over the hood. The man who called every week during basic training, even when my mother didn't. He looked small. Not just physically, though he did. The muscles I remembered from his days of yard work and hauling lumber had withered. His frame had sunk into the mattress, like he was trying to disappear into it. Tubes threaded from his nose, his arms. A monitor beeped steadily beside him, indifferent and unbothered by the fact that it was the only sound keeping me upright. I stepped in like I was intruding on something sacred. "Hey, Grandpa," I whispered. "It's me. Cassidy." No movement. I pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. The air smelled like antiseptic and old air vents. I reached into my bag and pulled out the bottle of aftershave I'd picked up from the base exchange, his favorite. Still in the bag. Still with the receipt. I stared at it longer than I meant to. He hadn't been shaved. His hair hadn't been brushed. Someone had changed his gown, yes. But it was the kind of care done by people on shifts, not by people who give a damn. I stood up, found a plastic comb in the bedside drawer, and ran it gently through his hair. His scalp was warm, his skin dry. He always hated being unkempt. Said if he ever ended up in a hospital, someone better fix his damn hair. So I did. A nurse walked in, a woman in her 30s, with kind eyes, and exhaustion etched into every movement. "You must be Cassidy," she said. I nodded. "He's stable. But it's serious. He hasn't woken since he was brought in. Congestive heart failure, some kidney complications." I swallowed hard. "Has anyone else been by?" She hesitated. "No," she finally said. "Not once. No calls. No visitors. Your name's not even listed as next of kin." I looked at her sharply. "Who has she checked the chart?" "Laura Rowen." "Of course. My mother." I leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling, as if it could explain anything. She left quietly, respectfully. I stayed. And for the next 2 hours I didn't move. Just sat there, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, the machine doing most of the work. They hadn't just forgotten him. They had erased him. And now I had a question I couldn't let go of. Did they know he was this sick before they left? Because if they did, and they still chose Cancun, then this wasn't neglect. It was cruelty. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. Instead, I sat by Grandpa's side, combing through every inch of that cold hospital room for anything that might explain how it had come to this. Why he ended up here alone. Why no one had shown up. Why no one had even called. At some point past midnight, I opened the drawer in the nightstand. Inside was a manila envelope, old and creased. My name was on the front, written in handwriting I'd recognize anywhere steady, all caps slanted just a little left. Cassidy. If she comes back, let her see. No one had warned me about this. Not the nurses. Not the admin staff. Not even Grandpa months ago during our last call when he told me to keep my boots dry and my eyes open. He knew. He knew I'd come back and find this mess. And he knew the people I called family would vanish the second things got hard. I didn't open it right away. Just held it in my hands and stared at the crease down the middle like it could tell me something more than paper and ink ever should. Then I ripped it open and pulled out the contents. The first was a letter handwritten front and back. No fluff, no apologies. Just his voice on paper. "Cass, if you're reading this, I didn't want to drag you back. But I knew if anyone would come, it'd be you. I didn't tell the nurses who to call because I didn't want anyone tipping off your mother. She'd find a way to twist it. She always does. You've carried more than your share, and I've let it happen too long. This time, I'm setting the damn chessboard myself. The legal stuff's enclosed. Carver has the rest. He'll wait until you reach out, no one else. Not Laura, not Troy, not Miles. Just you." I blinked, chest tight. Beneath the letter were 2 documents. The first, a durable power of attorney. The second, a medical directive. Both notarized. Both signed 11 weeks ago. Both naming me as sole agent for everything. Health finances estate. My hands trembled. He hadn't just trusted me. He'd prepared for them to fail, and he'd made damn sure they wouldn't get to fail him again. I slid the papers back into the envelope, tucked it into my bag, and kissed the back of Grandpa's hand. It felt lighter now, less alone. Maybe that was just me projecting, but it didn't matter. On the way out of the hospital, I sat on a bench by the entrance and pulled up my phone. 1 bar of signal, barely enough. I opened my contacts and scrolled down to the one name that still felt like a lifeline: Martin Carver, probate and elder law. I hit call. The line rang once, then again. A gruff voice answered. Carver. It's Cassidy Rowen, I said. I found the envelope. There was a pause on the line, then a low exhale. Well, he said, took you long enough. And just like that, the next chapter began. The next morning, I walked into Martin Carver's office with the envelope still in my bag, and a resolve that didn't need caffeine to stand tall. His office was exactly what I expected. Nothing shiny, nothing sleek. Just stacks of paper, a half-dead plant in the window, and a coffee mug that probably hadn't been washed since 2012. But he stood when I entered, motioned me in like he'd been waiting for this meeting longer than I had. Let me guess, he said. You read the letter. I nodded and handed over the documents. He scanned them like a man who'd seen this story 100 times, but still hoped every ending would be different. Everything's in order, he said. Power of attorney medical directive, joint account authorization, all signed, all clean. Your grandfather made sure of it. And my mother, I asked. She was removed from everything 2 months ago, he replied. Quietly. He didn't want to fight, he just wanted out. I sat down across from him, my boots still dusty from the hospital floor. I wanted all activated, full authority, no contact from them, no access, no loopholes. He leaned back, eyes glinting. You're sure I met his stare without blinking? They left him. This isn't about revenge. This is about protection. Carver gave a small nod, then opened a drawer and started pulling papers. We'll send certified notices to the hospital, the banks, and the estate trustee. As of today, you're the point of contact for everything. By the time I left his office, I had a folder under one arm and a storm in my chest. At a red light on the way home, I opened my phone and created a new group contact, Laura Troy Miles. Then, I drafted one message. No greeting. No emotion. Just a link. Zoom. Noon. Mandatory. They were going to hear it not from lawyers, not through rumors, but from me. Because this time, I wasn't asking to be heard. I was taking back every part of him they had ignored. And I wasn't going to leave room for misunderstandings. At exactly 11:59 a.m. I clicked the link. My screen lit up one by one, first Laura in oversized sunglasses, with a mimosa in hand, pretending not to be caught off guard. Then Troy shirtless, sunburnt, holding a coconut like he was doing a travel commercial. Finally, Miles clearly annoyed, trying to angle his camera away from whatever resort bar he was parked at. Can we make this quick? Miles muttered. Wi-Fi sucks here. I didn't smile. I didn't even blink. I'll get straight to it, I said. As of this morning, I have full legal, medical, and financial authority over everything related to Grandpa James Rowen. Laura lowered her sunglasses slowly. Excuse me, I lifted the signed power of attorney into frame. This was signed 11 weeks ago. Notarized, witnessed, filed. It's done. Troy chuckled, but there was no humor in it. You're bluffing. You think so? I clicked my trackpad. A second later, their email notifications started pinging copies of the signed forms, court filings, bank notices, all stamped and confirmed. Laura leaned in like she was still auditioning for control. Cassidy, sweetheart, this feels very aggressive. We were going to involve you. No, I cut in. You were going to keep involving me the way you always have when it's convenient. When it's profitable. But you left him. You booked flights and ordered poolside drinks while he lay unconscious. Don't pretend that's love, Miles scoffed. So what now? You just cut us off? I nodded. Exactly. You're locked out. No access to hospital records, accounts, nothing. If you contact staff, they'll refer you to me. If you try to dispute it, my attorney is ready. Troy leaned forward, his voice low and bitter. You're out of line. No, I said, voice calm, sharp. I'm in charge. For once, they had nothing to say. Just 3 faces staring through a screen, realizing the game had ended and they'd lost. I ended the call before any of them could scramble for a rebuttal. Then I sat back in silence, letting the weight of it all settle. This wasn't about winning. It was about drawing a line. And I had drawn it in ink no one else could erase. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was upset. Because I was focused. I sat at the kitchen table Grandpa built with his own hands, still scarred from years of hot mugs and Sunday crossword puzzles, and opened my laptop. If they thought this was about power, they were wrong. It was about proof. Receipts, transfers, voice messages. I'd spent years sending money from deployments marked for Grandpa's prescriptions for utilities for groceries. But when I pulled the statements, the truth was louder than any accusation I could make. There were spa charges on the same day he missed a dialysis appointment, airline tickets booked 2 days after his first hospital admission, a reimbursement request marked meds transferred from my account, even though I found a pharmacy receipt paid in full by him in cash. It wasn't just neglect. It was patterned, calculated misuse. Fraud with a family photo attached. I built a spreadsheet, cross-referenced every expense with every withdrawal, color-coded, dated, attached images. My cursor didn't hesitate. By morning, I had 63 labeled files. One folder, proof, misuse of funds Rowen family. I backed it all up, cloud flash drive, encrypted hard drive. I wasn't taking chances. I'd seen people like them talk their way out of worse. But not this time. Not with paper trails. At 9:15 a.m., I sent it all to Carver. His reply came fast. "This is good. Very good. Want to take it to court?" My response was simple. "I want to take it all the way." Then I made one more move. I opened my banking app, selected every card and account that had been linked to any Rowen other than James or me, and froze them. It asked me to confirm. I did. Without blinking. A minute later, my phone buzzed. A missed call from Laura. Then another from Miles. A text from Troy, "You're dead to me." I stared at that one longer than the others. For someone who hadn't texted me in over a year, he sure had energy now. I smiled without humor and shut off the phone. If they wanted access again, they'd need more than words. They'd need accountability. And I was done waiting for them to find it on their own. Grandpa passed quietly just after 2 a.m. No machines cried out. No sudden movement. Just one long exhale, like he was finally letting go of everything he'd been holding in. I was there. I held his hand, told him he wasn't alone, and stayed long after the room went still. We buried him beneath the tree he planted when I was born. A modest service. The flag he earned folded tight. No scripted eulogies, just a few neighbors and veterans who actually showed up. No one else from the family came. They sent flowers. I sent them straight to the hospice wing. That week, I finalized the paperwork with Carver. The court granted me full control, medical, financial, legal. Laura, Troy, and Miles were stripped of all rights to his estate. No contest, no appeal. I didn't spend the inheritance. I used it to start something better. The Rowen Foundation now helps elderly veterans like him, those left behind by the very people who once promised to care. We pay for heating prescriptions, even emergency relocation when families disappear. Quiet work, the kind that matters. I stayed in the house, kept his old chair, brewed coffee in his chipped mug. I still sit out back most mornings, wrapped in the flannel he used to wear on Sundays, listening to the wind shuffle through the trees. People ask why I did it. Why I didn't just walk away and let karma do its job. Because love doesn't wait around, hoping justice shows up. Love becomes the justice, and he deserved that. So I showed up, I did the work, and I made damn sure the people who failed him never got the chance to rewrite what he left behind.